The Galactic Academy of Unity was a shining place that gathered young minds from hundreds of peaceful planets. Every student there believed the galaxy had moved past the age of war. They came from worlds where no one had carried weapons for generations. To them, fighting was something only wild species did long ago before becoming civilized. On one quiet morning, a group of alien students filled the large white lecture hall. Among them sat Torella, a tall crystal being with glowing blue eyes, and Kalor, a scaled student from a calm ocean world. They both had studied peace treaties, healing, and cultural understanding. They never thought they would ever hear the word war inside the academy. When the door opened, the students turned. Their new teacher walked in, a human named Professor Arden. He was calm, older, and polite. He spoke softly but carried a kind of quiet strength that made everyone pay attention. "Good morning, class," he said. "Today we begin a subject rarely discussed here, Earth's combat history." The room went silent. Some students laughed nervously. Others whispered, thinking it must be a mistake. Combat history? What could possibly be learned from something so primitive? Arden smiled slightly as if he expected that reaction. "I understand your surprise," he said. "But knowledge of struggle teaches more than comfort ever can. Let's begin." The large screen at the front came alive with moving pictures. It showed humans in old metal armor fighting with swords. Then it showed wars on a much larger scale. Machines, tanks, airplanes, and fire spreading through cities. The alien students gasped. None of them had ever seen such things. Torella's crystal fingers trembled. "Why would your people destroy so much?" she asked softly. Arden's eyes looked sad but steady. "Because we had no choice. Our world was full of conflict, land, power, survival. But in each war we also learned something about who we were." He changed the images. Now they saw humans pulling each other out of rubble, soldiers helping wounded enemies, children sharing food after battle. Even in chaos, Arden said, humans tried to keep kindness alive. That is what makes us who we are. The class grew quiet. Kalor whispered to the student beside him. They must have been insane. They fought with no chance to win. Arden turned toward him. "We did," he said. "Many times. But we fought because we believed some things were worth protecting. Freedom, family, hope. Even when the chance was 1 in 1,000, we stood our ground." He showed them another set of images. Humans climbing through snow-covered mountains, holding their wounded teammates, refusing to give up. Then he displayed the first space war involving humans, a small colony attacked by alien raiders. The humans had been outnumbered 10 to 1. Yet they fought for every inch of ground and finally forced the raiders to retreat. The students couldn't believe it. "That's not possible," said Torella. "They should have surrendered." "Why didn't they?" "Because surrender," said Arden quietly, "is not something our hearts understand easily." He paused, letting the silence settle in the hall. The alien students watched more clips. Humans standing in flooded cities after disasters, rebuilding homes together. They began to see a strange pattern. Destruction followed by rebuilding, pain followed by unity. Arden continued, "For thousands of years humanity struggled. But each time we broke, we built again. We learned to turn pain into progress. We learned that real peace is not given, it is earned." Torella lowered her head. Her glowing eyes dimmed. "Your world must have suffered greatly." "We did," Arden said softly. "But we also grew stronger than anyone imagined. We learned compassion from our own mistakes." The images shifted again. Now they showed the day when humans joined the Galactic Council. Many alien species had doubted them back then, calling them dangerous, unpredictable, too violent. But soon after, when a small war broke out on the edge of the galaxy, it was humans who helped protect the innocent worlds. Arden showed them one such moment, a human medical ship flying unarmed through a battle zone to save wounded civilians. "We may know how to fight," he said, "but we never forget why we do it." The students were silent. Kalor, who had always believed his world's peace was the highest form of wisdom, suddenly looked uncertain. He had never realized how peace could exist only because someone was strong enough to protect it. Torella whispered, "Do you ever stop preparing for war?" Arden looked at the image of Earth on the screen, blue, fragile, and shining. "We hope for the day when we can," he said. "But until then, we prepare. Because we know what happens when good people stay silent." The class ended with no applause, no laughter. The students left quietly, their minds filled with the heavy truth of what they had seen. Later that night, Torella sat by the academy window looking at the stars. She thought about the human faces she had seen, tired, dirty, bleeding, but still smiling. She wondered how such a species could survive so much pain without losing their heart. Keylor joined her and said, "I used to think humans were just strong. Now I think they are something else entirely." "What do you mean?" she asked. "They are stubborn," he said. "Stubborn in life and hope and kindness. They don't quit." Far away in his quarters, Professor Arden sat quietly watching the same stars. He knew what his students were thinking: fear, confusion, respect. He smiled softly. "Let them think," he murmured. "Understanding humanity always begins with shock." The next morning, the lecture hall remained quiet when he entered. No one laughed this time. All eyes were on him. Arden nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "Now we begin the next lesson, how humanity turned all that pain into unity." And in that moment, the alien students knew something had changed inside them. They no longer saw humans as strange or dangerous. They saw them as survivors, a people who had walked through fire and learned to carry light. From that day, no one in the academy forgot what they had witnessed. They whispered to each other in the halls, telling others about the human history lesson that had shaken their beliefs. One message spread quietly among the students of many worlds. Humans are kind, but never forget how strong they had to be to stay kind. The alarm came suddenly, waking every student in the Galactic Academy. The Council's messages flashed across the holoscreens. A rogue fleet called the Wraith Dominion was moving through the outer systems. Known for conquering peaceful worlds, they had attacked without warning, capturing resources and enslaving civilizations. Panic filled the academy. Students whispered among themselves, fear written on every face. Trella and Keylor rushed to the main hall with the others. The room was packed with alien scholars from every corner of the galaxy. Holographic maps of star systems hovered above the center table, showing the path of the advancing Wraith fleet. Torella's blue crystal eyes glowed faintly with worry. Keylor's scales shivered as he studied the numbers. The Wraith fleet outnumbered any defense in the galaxy 10-1. "This is impossible," Keylor muttered. "How can anyone stop them?" Professor Arden entered the hall calm as ever. His presence immediately drew attention. He walked to the center of the room, looking at every student carefully. "It seems," he said quietly, "that it is time for another lesson." The students stared at him, unsure what he meant. Some expected speeches, others expected panic. But Arden merely smiled, a small, steady smile. "Sometimes," he said, "learning comes not from history but from watching it unfold." The Academy's holoscreens shifted. Across the void, human ships appeared. Sleek gray vessels with calm lights and disciplined crews. There were no loud sirens or bright explosions, just quiet readiness. The aliens gasped. The humans were far fewer than the incoming Wraith ships, yet they moved with purpose. Every soldier, every crew member seemed calm, confident, and ready for what was coming. Trella whispered, "There aren't enough of them. They can't win." "Watch," said Arden. The first Wraith ships appeared in orbit around a small human colony. Their weapons glowed and fired, lighting the darkness of space with violent streaks. But the human ships did not panic. They moved in precise formations, evading attacks, returning fire with controlled accuracy. The students could hardly believe what they were seeing. Arden pointed at the holograms. "Notice how humans act when outnumbered. They do not flee. They do not surrender. They adjust, adapt, and protect what they value." The Wraith flagship fired a massive weapon, hitting one of the smaller human ships. The vessel shuddered and alarms blared. Yet the humans did not panic. Engineers ran to damaged systems, manually repairing circuits under warning lights. Crews rerouted energy to shields and weapons, responding as a single organism. Keylor's tail twitched nervously. "How can they stay so calm?" he asked. "Because they are trained," Arden said. "Not just in skill, but in belief. They know what they fight for." The battle raged. The human fleet was surrounded. Yet they moved forward, defending the colony at every point. Ships that were nearly destroyed were abandoned only after their crews ensured civilians were safe. The alien students watched in amazement as the human fleet, though smaller and tired, began to turn the battle. One by one, the Wraith ships were disabled, not destroyed but stopped. The humans did not kill unnecessarily. They merely ended the threat. Trella could hardly breathe. "I have never seen anything like this. They are unyielding. They are something else entirely." Keylor admitted, his voice low. Hours passed, and finally, the battle ended. The Wraith fleet retreated, leaving the human colony untouched and its inhabitants safe. Human ships hovered over the survivors, offering assistance, repairs, and supplies. There was no celebration, no gloating, just quiet relief and care for the wounded. The students turned to Arden, eyes wide with shock and respect. Why do they fight like this? Torella asked. Why not just surrender? Because surrender is not always the answer, Arden said softly. Humans fight to protect life, to defend hope, to give others a chance to live freely. Fighting is not for conquest. It is for preservation. The room remained silent as the students processed what they had seen. Their minds had been filled with history before, but now they had witnessed reality. The strength of humanity in action. Strength that came not from hatred, but from courage, care, and determination. Torella spoke again, her voice shaking slightly. I think I understand now. Humans fight not because they want war, but because they will not allow life and hope to be destroyed. Arden nodded. Exactly. That is the essence of our species. We prepare, we endure, and we protect. And sometimes the lesson is shown, not told. Keylor stared at the holograms of the human ships. I thought peace was about avoiding conflict. Now I see that real peace comes only when strength and kindness work together. The alien students had changed. They had come expecting fear, even arrogance. Instead, they found humility wrapped in courage. They saw a species capable of mercy, patience, and brilliance. A species that could defend the galaxy not by destroying others, but by showing unshakable resolve. Professor Arden turned toward the students. Remember this, he said. A species that can protect life while respecting it is stronger than any fleet, faster than any weapon, and wiser than any council. This is why Earth is still standing, still teaching, and still remembered. As the students left the hall, whispers followed them. Across the academy, from crystal halls to watery lecture rooms, aliens spoke quietly of what they had witnessed. Humans are kind, but they remember strength. Torella and Keylor walked together toward their dormitory, staring at the stars. I never thought strength could be this gentle, Torella said. And I never thought peace could be this powerful, Keylor replied. Far away, Professor Arden watched the students leave. He smiled faintly, knowing they would carry this lesson with them. Humanity's story was not just history or myth, it was proof. Proof that courage, mercy, and resolve could shape the galaxy itself. By the next day, the council called a new assembly. Every species wanted to learn from humans, to understand how one planet could survive threats that seemed impossible. The alien students felt pride in sharing their experience, for they had seen firsthand what stories alone could never teach. And somewhere, deep in the outer systems, whispers began to spread among the fleets and planets. Do not underestimate the humans. They are kind, but they are strong enough to protect everything they care about. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. It was not about weapons, politics, or conquest. It was about a species that refused to give up, that remembered its past, and that fought with the heart of hope and the courage to protect it. Rella looked up at the stars once more, a new understanding in her crystal eyes. We will never see humans the same way again, she said softly. Keylor nodded, his scales shimmering. No, they are not just survivors. They are guardians. And so the lesson from Earth became part of the Academy's teaching forever. Not to glorify war, but to teach that true strength lies in the courage to protect, the will to endure, and the heart to care. The alien students had been shocked at first. But now they were inspired. Inspired by a species that had learned to fight not for destruction, but for the preservation of life, hope, and peace.